Hi, folks. Justin Skeens, your friendly neighborhood firearms instructor, coming to you from sunny Central Ohio today. We're starting off into the Memorial Day holiday here, 2022. Would like to remind folks Memorial Day weekend is about a lot more than just grilling out hot dogs and hamburgers with our friends and family. So please keep in mind all the folks that have made sacrifices, uh, oftentimes everything that they had for this great country. And that's what Memorial Day weekend's all about. I know some folks would have you believe that it's just a long holiday, but in reality, it's far more harsh reality than that for so many families. So please keep that in mind this weekend. But I wanted to come to you today to talk a little bit about some products that I've been using recently. If you know me, I've been talking about them quite a bit. For some folks, it'll be a little bit of a surprise because I've been such an advocate of iron sights for so long. But I've actually started to experiment with optics. And particularly, I've been working with the Vortex Venom, mostly because I've gotten some really good deals on them through Palmetto State Armory. I started off purchasing a dagger from Palmetto State Armory. All the guns that I'll be working with today are unloaded, so no magazine, no round in the chamber. You'll notice that this particular dagger is sporting the Vortex Venom optic on it already, and that's because I got a really good deal on this fully assembled slide with the optic attached for around $350, which I thought was a pretty smoking deal, and that was plenty good enough to be able to get my attention. Which I thought that the dagger itself was a really great value. I purchased one of the early daggers as soon as they became available and worked with them quite a bit. Really like it for a Gen 3 Glock 19 clone. I paid right around $329 for it when they first hit the market for iron sights. I've since transferred that slide over to a Glock 23 frame, which is really nice because I'm actually able to get an affordable 9mm upper that I can just put onto my Glock 23. This is actually a Gen 2 frame, and then I can shoot 9mm out of that, which is a little bit less recoil, a little bit more affordable even in today's post-COVID pricing. So I think that the Palmetto State Dagger is an excellent value. When they come to you, they've got a few little improvements that I think that could be made to them. First and foremost, I like to change the extractor out. The extractor, for whatever reason, does not protrude the loaded chamber indicator out when you have a round end to be able to show you that the chamber is actually loaded with a round. So I like to change those out with a Glock extractor. So you can actually sweep your finger across that and be able to tell if that's protruding out and know if you've got a loaded chamber or not. That's a nice feature that I like to add. I don't mind the fact that they have a a hinged trigger, very reminiscent of the Smith and Wesson M&P. I actually don't mind that. I kind of like the flat trigger face. It's a good spot for my finger to be able to reach in there and index each and every time. But what I really want to talk to you about today is what I think is an excellent value in handguns in general today, and that is the deals that they've been putting on these Vortex Venom sights. So, to discuss why I think they are such, I'm going to disassemble here. Always make sure that your gun is unloaded when you go to disassemble it if it comes apart like a clock. With traditional iron sights, I'm going to try to get you a good sight picture here. Okay. So, you've got this little window at the back where you have a notch in the rear sight. You've got that little window where you're trying to line this front sight up into. So I always describe it as equal height, equal light. We want the front sight to be the same height as the rear sight in that notch, and we want to have equal height left and right. So this is just a way for us to line this up. That is an exceptionally small window to be able to try to line up. So for some folks, that's really difficult to get the concept of. Very possible to get extremely accurate shots off with iron sights. One thing to remember is if we're using a smaller subcompact pistol, like say a Glock 26, we're going to have a much shorter sight radius. So any misalignment that we might have in that sight picture is going to be exacerbated by the time that it gets downrange to the target. So if we have a longer sight radius, it's a little bit more forgiving. It's much like a rifle where we've got the front sight and the rear sight lined up, and we want to put that front sight and the rear sight notch. With a longer sight radius, we've got more room for error within that rear sight notch because it's not going to be as pronounced with having a slight variation of where that front sight is located inside of that rear notch. One of the things that I've found working with the red dots, again, I'm going to disassemble, always verify firearm is unloaded before we go ahead and disassemble. With an optic, and I kind of like the Vortex Venom, it has an auto on feature that I can start. I've got this big window of this optic right here that as long as I can pick my dot up inside of that window and that dot is on my target, if I'm doing my job as a shooter with my grip and my trigger control, I'm able to place rounds where that dot is. So for comparison, we have our iron sights and our dot. Now, which one do you think is going to be easier to find as we try to line either the dot up in the window of that optic or the front sight up in the window of that rear sight, the notch of that rear sight? To me, the optic has much more room for error. You don't have to have everything lined up perfect with a dot or an optic. Focus on that dot. Forget that the front sight's even here. Look at your target, superimpose the dot onto your target, and just shoot for the dot. I've worked with some less experienced handgun shooters already with these. Palmetto State actually put out a smoking deal not too long ago where you could purchase a complete dagger pistol with the Venom or Doctor cut slide and the Venom optic. It was a 3 MOA for around I think $500. And to me, that was a really good deal. So a buddy of mine actually purchased one and came out to do some shooting with me, and we were working together. And he was doing well when we started off, and we got his optics zeroed in for him. But by the end of the day, we literally had him shooting groups from the same distance that he started off with, that he was holding, minute of paper plate. By the end of the day, he was shooting groups that I could place my thumb over top of. So working with him, getting him to focus on the dot, you could literally see the switch go off and you could see the light bulb above his head that he was starting to see some things, and he was able to just focus on his grip and his trigger control and no longer had to worry so much about his sight alignment. So it really, to me, it was kind of an aha moment for him and for me as well. We ran through some drills that day that, I'm going to be honest with you, when I first started off with the optics, I was pretty well convinced that I'm not an expert by any means, but I was pretty well convinced that I'm good enough with iron sights that the dot wasn't going to be much of an improvement for me. But much to my surprise, after looking at it from an analytical standpoint, running off of my shot timer and looking at my groups, I've got to say there was an improvement even for me, but I believe that the improvement will be most pronounced for the less experienced shooter, if you will. I think that it speeds up the learning curve exponentially. So if you're hem hawing around, you're thinking about it, you're thinking, well, maybe I do, maybe I don't. Take a look at Palmetto State Armory. They've got some really good deals going on. I know Taurus over there on their website, they've got some really cool deals going on for their Toro kits for their pistols to be able to get the slide cut the slide already cut, sorry, with the plates and an optic. Their optic, I think, is a hollow sun. I've dealt with those a little bit. Those are a nice optic too. And for the money, it's really hard to beat. But I got to say that if you go over to Palmetto State Armory, you can actually purchase just the slide. If you already have a Gen 2 or a Gen 3 Glock 19, you could purchase the slide to be able to use that on your pistol, which, like I said, I think I gave $350 for this. And to me, that was a really good deal. But take a look at it and give some thought to it. I'm going to tell you that I was a skeptic at first, and I've seen some folks trying to learn how to, do the dot dance where they look for it. Truth be told, I shoot the dot gun a lot like I do my iron sight pistols, in that I am just bringing the gun up to my eye level. So I'm already looking for that front sight, but as soon as I pick up that dot, I'm able to go ahead and get on the trigger and start landing shots on target. I think that this is also going to be a huge advantage for someone, and I'm not far off from it myself, that has bifocals, that might have some issues with traditional iron sights, because I've seen that working with shooters who wear bifocals, that with iron sights, the front sight tends to float, if you will. So it tends to move as you're switching between the focal planes on your lenses. I think an optic would help out tremendously with that. Also got another deal. Again, firearm is unloaded, no magazine, no round in the chamber. Got another deal on a 6 MOA Vortex Venom, which I actually went ahead and mounted on my Glock 22 that's sporting a 9mm conversion barrel. This particular optic plate actually replaces your rear sight. I don't think this is an ideal setup, but for the money, it's really hard to beat. This plate actually had to be fit to my slide. It came to me from Lakeline LLC. It was sub $40, even with shipping. So to me, that was a pretty good price point. But it also has the option that I can put an RMR optic on here, as well as the Dr. Cut optics like the Vortex Venom. So there's a lot of versatility there. So far, it's done well for me. Make sure to use blue Loctite when you secure everything down, but I haven't had any issues with it shaking loose or losing zero. Again, got a really good deal on this optic from Palmetto State Armory. They had a $100 off coupon, I believe it was. For the money, I can't hardly beat that. So working with the optics, I'm still fairly new to it, but I can tell you that it has been an easy transition for me. And I think that the more time that you put in with your iron sights, the easier the transition will be to a dot. But I also think that it's going to be easier for newer shooters to be able to pick up shooting with a dot, because we don't have to work on two focal planes at the same point, and we don't have to try to focus just on the front sight while we line it up in the rear sight notch and then superimpose that over top of your target. You literally look at your target, put the dot on it, and pull the trigger. Simplifies things so much. But just wanted to put a quick video out there to talk to folks about that. I think that it's an excellent option for the money. It's really hard to beat. This has been a much quicker transition for me to take a look at optics. I think the biggest reason that I was interested in even taking a look at these, because as a firearms instructor, I'm starting to see more and more optics out there, and I'm having people ask me more and more questions about them. So despite the fact that traditionally I've run iron sights, whether it be in competition, informal shooting, or doing my training, I need to be able to intelligently instruct my students on how to use an optic. So these gave me a rather inexpensive but still reliable option to be able to help work with students on these optics. So if you get a chance, come take one of my classes. You'll get to experience some of this. You have the opportunity to be able to use one of my optic guns and kind of see for yourself whether it's for you or not. I'm going to tell you that for starters, the Palmetto State Dagger, in my opinion, is an excellent value. But if you throw it in with one of the optic options that they have on their website, it becomes an exceptional value. So go over there, check out their website. I'm going to tell you, I think they got a winner on their hands. So in the meantime, train safe, train hard, stay safe, and have a wonderful day.